Preteen, or as they call them now, tween girls, really have their work cut out for them. In addition to navigating all the usual pressures and mysteries of growing up, they're doing it in the occasionally horrifying universe of online everything and 24/7 social media. Educator Lindsay Seeley sees a vital role for grown-ups to help these girls. She lays it out in her new book. It's called Growing Strong Girls, Practical Tools to Cultivate Connection in the Preteen Years. And we welcome Lindsay Seeley to our studio tonight. Thanks for coming a very long way to be with us.
Thank you for
Vancouver
having me.
is home for you, yes?
Not that far.
Well, listen, that's a long way. You got to get on a plane to come here.
That's true.
Let's just do a bit on your background here, because you've got a Master's of Educational Leadership, which I have never heard of before. What is that?
Yes, it was a unique degree for sure. It's a degree in education, but it's a really all-encompassing degree. So it also included special education, curriculum development, and counseling. And I didn't know this at the time, but that's really come in handy in the work that I do now with girls.
Gotcha. Master's of Educational Leadership from where?
From San Diego State.
San Diego State, okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do as a consultant?
So I work primarily with girls one-on-one, and it's almost always education focused, but I've learned to weave in the social emotional skills, and then as parents need, I also work with them. And I work a little bit with schools, doing workshops and some presentations.
So give us a for instance, from that part of your mission, where presumably a parent calls you up and says, Lindsay, we got a problem with X, Y, and Z, and what can you do for us?
Almost always the X, Y, and Z is something related to school. So my daughter's not doing well in math, or she's just not motivated, she's lazy. I hear that reason a lot. Or she's struggling socially. So she might like school, but she doesn't really have any friends at school. Those are the common ones.
When a parent says their kid is lazy, are they usually right or wrong?
They're usually wrong.
They're usually wrong about
So
that.
it's usually not lazy, it's usually that there's some learning difference and they haven't yet identified it. And so, of course, students aren't going to be motivated to work on something when it's so hard. But when we can find out what exactly the learning challenge is, and we can support them in the way they learn best, they tend to not be lazy anymore.
You just used two words that they didn't use back in my day.
Oh,
learning
sorry.
difference and learning challenge.
Yeah.
We used to say learning disability back in my day. You don't say that anymore?
We do. I think the words are all interchangeable, but some uniqueness in their learning that maybe isn't taught in the mainstream school, that isn't covering the 70% of the kids in the class that tend to learn in the usual way.
Gotcha. Do you take on boys as clients as well, or just girls?
Occasionally I do get requests for boys. Often it's a sibling of a girl that I'm working with, but I do welcome boys.
But it's mostly girls,
It's
eh?
mostly
How come?
girls,
Why the focus on girls?
I think for me, early on in teaching, I just felt that I connected really well with girls, and I think the reason is because they spoke my language. They wanted to talk about their feelings, they wanted to talk about their friends, and that actually became my niche. So I learned to talk about what mattered to them most before I got to the learning piece.
Okay, let's go through the book now, because I think one of the biggest takeaways here is that girls need to feel connected to the people in their lives, and that they feel that they are being heard and that they feel that they belong. Taking all of that in totality, why is all of that so important for girls?
Well, I think this idea of secure attachment and feeling safe and connected is so important, because when she feels that she has the belongingness and the connectedness, and she's feeling good about herself and really has permission to be herself, you're going to get more of the conversation. And I think a lot of times when girls derail, they're just not talking enough. And so if I have a safe space with you, and I can unburden myself and I can share what's really on my mind, then I'm calming myself, I'm de-stressing myself, and I feel good about myself. And that's a way to have her grow into her own strength.
So you are not much into the tough love, scared straight, harsher side of parenting.
Not a tough love person.
No. And do you have empirical evidence that your way works better than the other way?
There's a lot of research on the neuroscience and also attachment theory. So it basically says the stronger the connection, the more secure and the better we feel. And then we tend to be more successful in school, in life. Yeah.
In each chapter of the book, you devote a section to things that you can do or questions that you can ask of girl or girls in your life to help facilitate their growth as a strong person. And you suggest one of these things is called creating an all about me poster. Okay, what's an all about me poster?
Okay, so I'm big into visual tools and mind mapping. So as I get to know girls, as parents are wanting to explore deeper with their girls, they can create a mind map where they basically would start with their girl at the center and they would ask her all the different ways that she can describe herself. And if she can't think of those ideas, we can do it for her. But you could start with her interests or her hobbies or her goals, her dreams. And I think there's such power in seeing that visually for her to actually see that maybe there's so much more on the page than she would have imagined, or maybe she sees so much and not so little as she maybe thinks of herself. So
And the value of doing that is what?
Well, I think it's really important that girls know who they are, because when they know who they are, they tend to make better choices. They tend to attract people that are like them, that are going to be positive influences. And I think it enables them to take more risks. If I know who I am, I can feel secure, and I'm going to take more risks and grow and be brave.
Now, again, I'm going to ask this next question on behalf of the skeptics out there who will say, wait a second, young girls are already plenty self-centered.
Okay.
And they don't need a, it's all about me chart here to sort of figure out who they are. How do you do this without turning these kids into young little narcissists?
Right, no, that's a good question. How about this? How about not self-centered, but how about in the right order? So me first and then others. Because I do think we have a generation of girls who are people pleasers, who are wanting to help, and they tend to give more than they have. So if I think of myself like a cup, I want to fill myself up with all that goodness. I want to take care of myself. I want to feel my best, and then I have something to offer you.
Okay. I know you don't like baseball, but I'm going to give you a baseball quote here anyway, because on Jackie Robinson's tomb, it says, "A life is not important except for the impact it has on other lives,"
Yes.
which suggests it's not about me first, it's about somebody else first. Your approach seems to go backwards to that. So again, why is your approach the right approach?
Okay, well, how about this? How about the better I feel, the more I have to offer? So
okay, that's good.
I feel like I'm a difference maker when I have, when I'm fulfilled, when I'm taking care of myself. I'm happier. I want to give you what I have. I want to teach you, help you, serve you, contribute to the world, make a difference.
But it starts with me feeling good about me.
You have to feel good before you can offer
Okay,
that.
that I get, I get. Okay, social media. The mixed messages that young girls get from mainstream media about body, image, and sex, which they then share with all their friends on social media. And let's do one quote from the book here. Girls equate hot, pretty, and sexy with being accepted. They aren't equating looking sexy with the actual act of sex. There are so many mixed messages applied upon top of other mixed messages here. I almost don't know where to begin, but what's your advice on sort of navigating all of that?
Well, I think the first step is, if we can, especially if we're talking with younger girls, we want to delay her entry into social media, because in my opinion, not a lot of good comes from social media.
So what age?
So I recommend social media could start at 13. And one of the core reasons, if you want the science, is that her brain is more developed. So she's better able to think in abstractions, to understand some of the unwritten social rules, and I think make better decisions and have better judgment.
Now 13 sounds reasonable to me, but are you saying that there are many girls who are starting much earlier than that? I guess you are saying that.
They tend to start asking around 6. They tend to start using around 10. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like on Facebook and Twitter and everything, and Instagram at
Facebook
10?
isn't so relevant to young girls, so we're talking Instagram and we're talking Snapchat. Yeah.
Right. Instagram, because they all want to show each other shots of their shoes and clothes.
Yeah,
and
into selfies, and just, I think it's living through a screen. I think it's sort of take a picture first and then live the experience, and we've somehow reversed that order.
And what's wrong with starting at 10 for that kind of experience?
There's nothing wrong with it, but I think we just have to navigate carefully, because girls are seeing so much. And I think if we look at what's online, a lot of it is perfected, it's edited, it's photoshopped, and at the end of the day, it's not real. So we want her to know the difference between what she sees and her actual lived experience.
Which is tough to do at 10.
It's really tough to do, but I think that what's happening is this idea that there's a perfect is being embedded in her brain, and she's striving for it, whether it's sexy or hot or beautiful. And I think the underlying issue is not good enough. And so starting at 10, I mean, that's a tough battle, right?
Absolutely.
Most of us deal with it into adulthood, right? But I think that I would delay as long as possible.
Yeah. And when the kid comes to you and says, every other person in my class has a, device, I guess they call them now, has a device, and they're all 11 or 12.
That's when I would use tough love. So that's
okay,
when I would say,
there's an opening for it there.
I don't care. In this family, this is what we do. And you can educate her and you can tell her what you know. But I think it's a tough battle. I'm not saying it's an easy one, but I think I would try to delay entry as long as possible.
I wish I had read this book 3 years ago, but of course you hadn't written it yet, so that would have been difficult to do. Could have saved me a lot of heartache. Anyway, this notion of a BFF, best friend forever.
Yes.
What do you think of that?
I think it's bad. I think it's detrimental. So I think that there's a couple of things happening, but girls, they're longing to connect. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a friend, and maybe the BFF for her represents loyalty. So I want someone and I want someone to have my back. The problem is if we have a BFF and the BFF decides to find a new BFF, then we're alone. Or if our BFF decides to tell our secrets, then we've been betrayed. So I like to not even use that term because I think it's damaging. I think instead we want to encourage girls to have a circle of friends. We want to encourage girls to have friends at school and after-school friends and neighborhood friends. So if any one of those groups turns on her or she has any social turmoil, she has other friends. She doesn't go to a place of, I have no friends, I'm nobody. She goes to a place of, well, it's okay, because after school, I have different friends.
It's almost as if it's imprinted on their DNA, though, to search out that one and only. Right? Don't you find that?
It is. So I think
often.
the biological need is strong because with girls more than boys, there is a need to fit in and a need to be accepted. And one of girls' greatest fears is social rejection and isolation. So that means she's wearing blinders. That means she's driven to find that person. And that means we have to really pay attention and we have to really intervene and get her to just think a little bit wider.
And 9 times out of 10, it's going to end in heartbreak, isn't it?
It ends in heartbreak a lot, and that's why we have the strong connection and the safe, secure place for her to come to.
Okay, for some of our viewers who are of a certain age, the word frenemy might need defining. You want to tell us what a frenemy is?
Sure. So frenemy is a word where we have merged friend and enemy together. So they're not a friend per se, but they're not an enemy. They're somewhere in between, which means there's a lot of up and down in the relationship. So they might be friendly one day and the next day not so friendly. And it's no different, I think, than a not so healthy relationship, right?
There's a lot of rivalry in there too.
A lot of up and down and a lot of, I think, mixed messages. And I think that can be really confusing for a girl.
And if you're a parent and you see that your daughter has a relationship with a frenemy, what are you supposed to do about it?
Well, I think we could start from a really positive place, and that is defining what is a healthy relationship. What does healthy friendship look like? And more importantly, what does healthy friendship feel like? Because 10 times out of 10, a frenemy is not going to feel good. But I think sometimes we are creatures of habit, or we just so want a connection with someone, we'll take anyone. And so I think I like to start from that positive place of just exploring what it is she really wants and what's good for her.
We've done numerous programs here on being the victim of bullying, but I want to flip the question around and ask you about being the parents of the kid that bullies. I imagine in your practice you have to deal with this from time to time? Okay, what kind of advice do you give the parents of bullies who presumably are part of the reason why their offspring is a bully?
Yeah, good question. More common than you would think. And a lot of parents, thankfully, are really honest with me and they say, I know you deal with the bullied girl, but I think my daughter's the bully. And they do it, with a little bit of shame and guilt, but I think it's a great question. So first of all, I explain to them the reasons underlying the bully behavior or the mean girl behavior. Often she's the most disconnected, lonely, insecure girl. And in her way of connecting, it's sort of a shortcut method to connection, she's using meanness to gain power, to feel good about herself. And so I think there's nothing wrong with explaining this to girls so they understand their own behaviors. And I think what we have to do is have empathy for her, because it's tough, and we want to make sure that she's heard and her story gets told.
It's hard to have empathy for the bully.
It is hard, but if you start with empathy, you're more likely to get the conversation going because you've now entered that safe place. You've now connected with her, but also to teach her empathy, to ensure that she understands her words and actions have consequences and that people are feeling not so good by obviously receiving mean behavior. But ultimately, we want to teach her new ways because often mean girl behaviors have just become habitual. It even can become her reputation. And if that's what she's known for, we all know it's hard to get out of a reputation. So new ways of connecting, because often mean girls are actually really strong leaders. If you flip it, they can get people to follow them. They're
If you
strong.
can channel
they're,
that
yeah,
energy
they're
into something
powerful.
constructive.
So why don't we, instead of excluding to gain that power of, oh good, you're out of our group, that feels like dominance, what about including and turning it to empowerment? And again, always checking with how that feels. My guess is it's going to feel a lot better than being the mean girl.
In your consulting work, though, how often are you able, and I don't know what the right verb is here, so you'll tell me,
Okay.
how often are you successful in unbullying girls?
Very
or
successful.
debullying, whatever
the
the word is.
turnaround is possible.
It
But
is, eh?
again, it's about noticing her. It's about being there for her and saying, you know what, I see what you're doing. Let's give you another tool and try it. And if we tap into the feeling, then again, she's going to feel good about it. What we've done is we've channeled it into something good, and we've created a new momentum, new energy. It can be life-changing, I would say.
I wonder, though, how difficult all of this is to do, given that we're trying to get young girls to talk to each other and be open and in touch with their feelings and et cetera, et cetera. Most adults can't do that stuff.
Right,
and they're
right.
allegedly mature. So bigger challenge to get younger kids to do it?
It's a big ask. I think that's
Yeah,
what you're saying, and I
precisely.
agree. Yeah, but I look at it this way: we're not looking at doing major sessions of therapy to make sure you're good before you can be a good parent. I think it's all about trying. If you have the willingness to try and you think in small steps, one try every day, and if what you try doesn't work, try again, then you're doing a great job.
I know the focus of the book is growing strong girls, but I must tell you, as I read it, I thought to myself, there's no reason why this wouldn't work for boys, or for adults for that matter too. Is the advice kind of universal?
I think so, and I've gotten some pretty good feedback from moms, for sure, saying, I wish I had had this, as you said, or this is helping me too on my journey, and that makes me really happy. So.
Good.
Yeah,
Well, we're glad you came all the way from Vancouver to be with us today, and the name of the book again is Growing Strong Girls, Practical Tools to Cultivate Connection in the Pre-Teen Years. Lindsay Seeley, great to meet you here on TVO tonight.
It's really nice to meet you too.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.